Okay, here we are, continuing on with our concept project proposal. You just finished developing your own brand where you created your own company name, your own logo, a mission statement for your company, and also the beginning of the brainstorming of your children's educational video game. And that's what we're going to continue with. So in the slideshow, we see the next step is going to be our project scope. So the project scope, what is it? With your newly developed company, you have been tasked to create a children's educational video game that teaches blank. So we don't know what that is just yet. Before you can actually move forward with the project, there's some questions that you have to answer. There's some information that you have to gather. There's some brainstorming that you have to do to make sure that you know exactly what you're going to do before you actually do it. You definitely don't want to shoot the arrow and then draw the target around it. You want to have the target first and then you shoot the arrow at the target. So the project scope is the first step in setting the project goals and the objectives. So what is a project scope? There's a video here that you can watch. It'll give you a little bit of insight of what a project scope is. What it basically comes down to is everything within a circle that you draw that has to do with that project. And he talks about scope creep and other things. So go ahead and watch that video. It's not very long, but it does give you some good information. So what we're going to look at today is 6 steps to successfully defining the scope of your project. And you see these slides say if each of these 6 steps. The first step is identifying the needs of the project. So before you can actually create a project, what are the needs? What are the what's and what are the whys of the project, as you see here. So think about what are some of the needs that you're going to need. Will it be a development team? Will it be software? What are some of the things that you actually need to be able to create this project? Next is confirming the objectives and goals of the project, and what you see here are the SMART goals, and you may have seen these before. Where the SMART goals are, your goals are specific, they're measurable, they're achievable, they're realistic, and they're timely. So this next slide goes into more detail about that. How do you make your goals specific? How can they be measurable? Measurable meaning, can there be feedback given to you? Some things that you are accountable for. Are they achievable? Or are you just creating goals that are just not able to be met? And that ties in with realistic. Are your goals realistic? Can they be done? And what about the time frame? What is the time frame that you'll be able to do that within? So the third step is the project scope description. This step you'll probably spend the most time on, but just describing the overall scope of your project. Step 4 are the expectations and acceptance. As you see here where it says for customers, includes pricing, value, so on and so forth. I'm going to have you address that, and not in any great detail, but I want you to be able to address what certain expectations of your project are, and what about the acceptance. What is acceptable to the client or to the end user? Identify constraints. This is kind of thinking about worst case scenarios. Along the way, there's always going to be issues. Will your head developer get sick, or maybe move off and takes a job with another company? Will the money that you were counting on not come through? This is basically thinking about certain constraints that you might come across and having a plan in order to counteract that. So it's always good to kind of foresee what potential issues there might be, and identify what those potential constraints might be. Then identify any necessary changes, because there's always going to be changes. The client may change their mind. The way you had envisioned the software to develop isn't working out the way you had planned. So what are changes that you can potentially foresee and have a plan for? Now, a lot of these steps, obviously, this is your high school student. You're creating a video game for an educational video game for children, and this scope of the project obviously is for bigger projects, for out in the, we'll say, real world, and I'm using air quotes right now, real world. where there's developers and there's administrators and there's stakeholders in your project and other people involved, and it's not the case what we're doing. But I definitely want you to be able to address these 6 different steps so you understand what they represent. So if and when you are in the real world and you do have a project concept proposal that you're working on and you have to develop the scope of your project, at least you'll have a good foundation, a good understanding of what it means. So here's the actual assignment. Back on slide 18, we saw this sentence here. With your newly developed company, you have been tasked to create a children's educational video game that teaches blank. So I want you to write a description of the project. You're going to fill in that blank, and you're going to give me a complete paragraph, give me a description of your project. You can take it from yesterday's assignment, where you kind of wrote, started brainstorming your game that you'll eventually market. So you can take some information from that paragraph. So step 2 is you're going to write a purpose statement. Purpose statement summarizes the project's main goal or goals. Now you've already written a mission statement, and let me tell you what the difference is. A mission statement is for the company. So the company that you created, you have a mission. Your mission is to create the best educational video games on the planet. Maybe that's your mission. The purpose statement is for this project. Mission statement is for the company. The purpose statement is specific to the project. So your purpose statement will be, this educational video game will teach preschoolers their ABCs, something like that. Finally, you're going to go through each of those 6 steps, and you're going to address each of the 6 steps that we just went through on the different slides. Again, you don't have to go into any great detail. I want you to answer them as if you are working in a larger company. You are the CEO or the head developer of this project, or the lead person on this project. So tell me what some of the project needs might be. Go through those SMART goals. Give me a description of the project. Talk about some of the expectations and acceptance of your project. Come up with some potential constraints that might happen, and come up with some necessary changes. I understand some of the stuff you're making up, especially with the constraints and the changes, although we do have one constraint right now where we can't get to our Game Maker software, so that's one constraint that we'll definitely have to address down the road. Okay, so here's a recap in this final slide. I'll write a description of your project, write a purpose statement, and go through each of the six steps. Put that on a Google Doc. Make sure that all the steps are labeled so I know that you've hit each of the marks. It's difficult when you blob everything into one long paragraph. It's hard to parse out, making sure you're hitting all of the steps of the assignment. So go ahead and take care of that. That is due tonight. Again, with any questions you might have, definitely email me or message me. I did go through and finish grading up everything from the last module, so we'll figure out probably sometime after spring break we'll do a quiz on the color design module, and I think that's it. Please let me know if you have any questions. Thank you.